Your video and audio have been muted, and the Q&A feature is available for you to ask any questions. We might try to get to some of them during the program, but if not, don't worry, we'll have a full Q&A session at the end. I'd now like to welcome Jamila Nuruddin. She's our Vice Chair of Programming for the USC Trojan Women's Network, and she is the moderator for today's program. Jamila?
Thank you so much, Tanya, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us. My name is Jamila Nuruddin, and I'm a graduate of the School of Theater, now called School of Dramatic Arts, back in 2006. And I took that degree and went ahead and started a nonprofit that mentors children in the arts, so theater, dance, filmmaking, poetry. And currently, I'm also producing-wise, I'm working on a series of PSAs funded by the Blackburn Institute in Alabama that's centered on getting young Black teenage girls interested and engaged in their local and state governments. So that feels really great. It's completely creatively put together by Black women. We have an Emmy Award-winning animator, it's animated, and composer, and it's just this beautiful coming together and really try to make an impact with our art for a very good cause. So that's what's taking up my time these days. But I'd also want to share with you just this staggering stat I just heard today, that 56% of the US labor force is now working remote due to the pandemic. And while there's certainly lots of benefits from working from home, it does present some unique challenges. So that's why we've invited our fabulous guest speaker today, Amy Sanchez, who is a graduate from the MBA class of 2010. So she can share with you some steps of how you can better manage your work-life balance. Without further ado, I'd love to turn it over to you, Amy.
Great, thank you, Jamila. Can you hear me okay?
I can, you sound great.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody out there. Gosh, it's strange to do this and not be able to see your faces, but I do want to invite you to interact with me throughout this recording. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get right to it. Okay. So thank you for taking time out of your busy, busy days. One of the things we're going to be diving into is how busy things are and how much life and work are on top of each other right now. So thank you for being here, and I'm going to show you what we're going to be exploring during our time together. So I entitled the first bit of this Pandemic Madness. 6 months ago, we literally had no warning and things shut down virtually overnight. So we're going to explore what that's the impact that's had on our lives and how that's sort of smushed together work and life for us. Then we're going to go into some solutions and problem solving to help you guys make the most of the rest of the pandemic time. Solutions are going to ladder up to productivity, setting boundaries, and recharging. Now, I want to hear from you and I want to answer all your questions as you have them. As we go through the presentation, just write them down and we'll get to them at the very end. That way anyone who needs to jump off at the end can do so and still get time for your questions. Okay, so who am I? Why am I qualified to talk to you? Well, besides being a USC Trojan, as Jamila said, class of 2010, Marshall, I started my career in healthcare sales and marketing. So worked for big companies like Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson, some smaller companies. And about 13 years in my career, I had hit a director of marketing role and also had my first child and realized that my priorities were not being honored in the way I wanted them to be. And there were some real gifts and strengths that I wasn't able to explore. So I decided to get registered as a coach, accredited as a coach under the International Coaching Federation. I started my own business about 3 years ago called Swim Against the Current. And I love what I do today. And I'm so, so grateful because what I get to do is partner with corporate leaders who have a lot of stress and overwhelm in their lives and help them to replace that stress and overwhelm with joy and ease so that they can reach their full potential while enjoying their lives. So I do this via career coaching, leadership coaching, and then also workshops within companies. And I get to talk to great people like you through this vocation. So I'm very honored to be here. Now, like I said, I can't see you. I don't even know how many of you are here, so this is weird, but I want to hear from you. So first poll, please, if you are able and willing, share your voices. What has been the hardest thing for you as we've shifted to working from home during the pandemic? Now, these are all probably hard. Just choose the one that's the hardest for you. Oh, this is fun. I get to see it in real time. We've got two that are close to the top and then two that are lower. 97% voted. Okay, great. So it looks like the winner is separating life from work. Woo! That's probably why you're here. So you're in the right place. Second, inability to connect live with others. Yes, feel that. Finding time to recharge, third, and monotony, fourth. Okay, good. Well, this validates that this is the right topic for us to dive into. And let's go into that. So what's happened since March? Work life has drastically changed. So for many of us, we went from in-person meetings where we got to see our coworkers every day. We had this distinct environment where we worked versus where we lived. And then boom, the pandemic hit. And now many of us are in video chats all day long. So the term Zoom fatigue is being tossed around quite a bit. That is certainly something that a lot of people are suffering from. And this change has led to a lot of different paradigms that have appeared since the pandemic started. We have less opportunity to build relationships because we're not in person. We have forced and planned conversations that just feel sort of artificial, hard to connect because we're just seeing each other via video, which is not nearly as powerful as all the cues that we pick up that are nonverbal when we're in person. We sit all day. So even when we had those, visits, even when we had those built-in walks between meetings or from our car to the office, even those have been replaced with just sitting and staring at a computer. And there's literally, physically, and mentally no separation between work and home. So many of us have our computers in the corner of our bedroom. That's where I'm coming to you from, corner of my bedroom. It's where my office is. Some people are in the living room. We've literally had to carve out space where we sit down and we work that is surrounded by our lives. Less ability to read the room. So that's the other thing that we're losing. So there's been a lot of changes. Now, people have come up with clever solutions to this. I don't know if you've heard about this, but you can actually invite a llama or a goat to your Zoom call. So there are people, entrepreneurs who are looking for creative solutions to sort of break up the ennui and the boredom of our Zoom calls. But these are very temporary solutions. What continues to linger is we don't have the ways to recharge like we did before COVID. Before COVID, outside of work, we could jump on an airplane and travel and visit a new destination without worrying about wearing a mask or contracting a disease. We were able to go hang out with our friends. Many of us are from California, so you could freely meet your friends at the beach, have a bonfire, chat. We used to be able to go to SC football games, hang out, cheer for our Trojans. All of this virtually disappeared overnight. Now, what this means is all the things that we used to do to recharge that we took for granted, we never realized how impactful they were to our lives, is gone. So one of the most challenging things about COVID is it's a lot of monotony. So there's two lifestyles that I've tried to capture here. Now, whichever side of the screen that you most feel connected to, whether it's the left side, because we're working in the space where we live, household tasks are constantly calling us all day. Everybody's got laundry piling up. We're having to cook our meals a lot more than we used to. It was easy to just pop to a restaurant before. And at night, it's either one of these two things where you're trying to unwind while emails are still coming in, while you're trying to catch up with friends and talk and connect, or you're going to take care of people in your house and you're so exhausted by the end of the day that you zonk out. But either way, the separation that we used to have between work and life is blurred. We no longer have those physical boundaries that we used to have. And that's actually led to defined work hours that used to be in place to start to bleed. So it's fair game now that work emails can come in 24/7. And because we're living at work, as a lot of people say, it's hard to get away from it. So no matter what side of the screen that you most relate to, a lot of people have said over and over again, what day is it? Is it Tuesday? Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? I don't even know anymore. It's hard to keep track of. Feels like Groundhog's Day. Now, this is highlighting the negative side of the pandemic, but there has been a real gift of this time. So let's sort of turn the energy of this talk and focus on what we've learned. A lot of people have started to crystallize their priorities. Now that we have this stark contrast between the way that life used to be and the way that life is now, with our restrictions, we're recognizing that there's a lot of really cool stuff that we used to do that we really liked that we took for granted. We're also recognizing now that we've eliminated a lot of the noise that's around us, we're recognizing what's most important, who's most important. As we're trying to decide who we hang out with, right, who our pod is, we start to really prioritize our relationships. So the gift of this pandemic has been that it's really taught us what we value. Now, I want to take a moment and just say, you're doing great. You have survived 6 months of a worldwide pandemic. That is no small feat. And the fact that you're here and you're tuning in and watching this webinar means you are engaged. You want things to improve. You want to do something different and better, which is the first step to doing it. So you're well on your way. So just take a moment and pause and just give yourself credit for all of the hard work that you've done, all of the stress, all of the agony that you've been through to get here. Now, we're about 6 months into this pandemic. Unfortunately, it's not going to end next week. We don't know when it's going to end, but we do know this is going to continue for a while. So let's make the most of our learnings. We've had some real gifts. So how do we incorporate what we've learned and really figure out a way to thrive with the remainder of the pandemic and find good ways to separate our life and our work? So now let's go to the second poll. I want to hear from you again. And the second poll is, before we highlighted what we're missing, now let's highlight what's the one thing that you appreciate the most now since the pandemic started. Worry-free travel and entertainment, spending time with loved ones, meeting new people, interacting live with coworkers. I know it's hard to pick, but just pick the one that weighs that's the heaviest for you. Oh. Okay, we've got about 91% voted, 94%. Okay, we've got a clear winner here. So, spending time with loved ones. I feel you guys. It's so hard not to see the people that we love the most. Followed by worry-free travel and entertainment. I'm right there with you. I missed that too. Meeting new people, interacting live with coworkers was actually quite low. So maybe this has been a gift for some of you. It's been good to go to this new remote workplace, but certainly where we're feeling it most in our hearts and our lives is not being able to spend time with loved ones. Thank you for sharing. So let's talk about, given this massive heaviness of not being able to spend time with our loved ones, how do we create a life that allows us to still meet our basic needs while we are existing for the rest of this pandemic? So there's lots of learnings that we can draw from as we think about the next chapter of the pandemic. We've had career considerations, how to successfully operate when we're all working from home, how to build in time for movement when we're just sitting in front of our computers all day. How do we continue networking to advance our career? So where we are right now is not going to be this static moment of time where we're not building these new connections needed to advance in our career. Life considerations. How do we bridge the socialization gap? How do we maintain or build new relationships without seeing people in person? And how do we get our needs met with fewer options available? And then finally, the stats are staggering about how much more of an increase there has been in stress-related incidents, alcoholism, suicide. The list goes on, but this is a real thing. There's stress and anxiety raging in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. So if there was ever a time to prioritize taking care of yourself, now is the time. And we're going to talk about how to do that. So this is where I implore you to press the reset button on the pandemic. Let's rally around, given all the answers that you've just shared with me. Certainly this has been a difficult time, but let's do what we can to make the most of what's left, take the learnings that we've uncovered and apply them to make this next chapter of the pandemic one that's really going to work for you and meet your basic needs. So there's 3 ways we're going to do that. The first one we're going to talk about is improving productivity. So as I talk about these, what you're going to see is I'm going to give you some scientific evidence as to why it's important to do this. And then we're going to go into some reasons for it. So you've got the reasons why. So interestingly enough, we've all heard the statistic about 10,000 hours. So the psychologist Anders Ericsson studied elite musicians at the Berlin Academy. And this is a term we throw around a lot. It takes 10,000 hours of practice to truly master a skill. But what we don't talk about from that study was what separated the good from the great. How did people use that 10,000 hours? The answer might surprise you. So the great musicians had 60 to 90 minutes of practice a day, typically 3 times a day, followed by rest. Those musicians who were just average had on average 100 minutes of practice a day. They had less rest or no rest and actually slept on average an hour less at night. So what's interesting about this study is the environment that we're in typically implores us to work, right? That's how you get stuff done. It's nonstop. It's the person who's constantly there, constantly answering their emails, is available at the drop of the hat no matter what. Those are the people who get promoted. But that's actually not how you improve your skill set. And that's actually is not going to help you as you try to master something. So with that in mind, as we look at improving productivity, there's science behind the need to rest and not be in back-to-back Zoom meetings. So here's what I encourage you to do. I encourage you to block time to get work done. And as you do that, shut down your email, chat, messenger, shut down all that stuff that's coming in and distracting you. Because you've got to start, because it's really helpful to just start crossing things off your to-do list. And the more we allow ourselves to be inundated by these distractions, the more difficult it is going to be for us to focus. So really good tip to try to incorporate here. Second, tackle the hard work first and the administrative busy work at the end of the day. In a minute, I'm going to show you what a sample day looks like that will really help you improve your productivity. And the reason we're improving productivity is so that when it's time for life, we're not getting pulled back into work as easily. Last 2 tips, add 10 to 15 minutes of padding between meetings so you reduce the feeling of being frazzled, you reset mentally when needed, you're not jumping into a meeting apologizing for being late. Nobody likes to feel that way. And it also, You want to feel like you're fully present and available when you go to these meetings, so that padding can really help. It also allows you to go get a drink of water, use the facilities, whatever you need to do. And back to that Erickson study, take breaks and get enough sleep. If not for yourself, then science is telling you that to be better at what you do, that's imperative. So what does a sample day look like as you think about your work week? Here's a really good example of kind of how to break up your day. Again, improve productivity so that when it's time for life to start, you don't have to worry about not crossing things off your to-do list because you've been organized enough that you've been able to do it throughout the day. So this is a lot, so let's just go, I'm going to break this down and try to make it really easy. So you'll see the orange here. This is the creative and challenging work. So do that early in the morning when you're fresh, you're well rested, your brain is firing, and this is a really good time to block off that important work that you need to get out of the way. Planning, you'll notice that I've got 2 yellow boxes for planning. So try to plan at the very beginning of your week and then also at the end of your week, so you're not just running from fire to fire to fire to fire. You know exactly what you want to work on and what you want to accomplish. That ladders up to your weekly intention. So we're going to talk about that weekly intention too. It's really helpful, instead of just being in reactive mode, that you get into a mode where you're more thoughtful about how you approach work and how you approach conversation. So if you do just build in a little bit of time in the beginning of your week to think about what you want to accomplish that week, both professionally and personally, this makes sure that this gives you sort of an additional guarantee that you're going to get through this work, and you're going to honor your needs throughout the week, instead of, again, getting pulled into other people's agendas. So really important to incorporate that planning time. Of course, you've got meetings, that's the blue, that's going to happen. Breaks. Make sure that you incorporate breaks. Like we mentioned with Erickson, that's the ability for your brain to recharge and takes you to that zone of genius that you want to get to. Certainly you want to find time to move your body, work out. So that's the workout section. And then you've got admin, email. I've sprinkled that in the beginning, in the middle, the end of the day. Close out those emails between if you can, so you're not distracted. And then if you can, just find time to network and connect with people. Now, it sounds like the biggest pain point out there is not being able to connect with loved ones. So build that into your week. Make sure that's a part of what you're doing. Of course, we can't do it the way that we used to, but let's make sure that we find ways to do that so it's not so draining and so difficult during this pandemic. Okay, let's talk about creating boundaries. Let me do a quick time check. Okay, so in 2016, researchers from Ball State and St. Louis University tested the theory that lack of strict boundaries between home and work leads to higher levels of stress. So we've all heard the saying that you have to have these strict boundaries between life and work. Turns out these guys actually debunked that theory. What they found was it's not actually the cognitive transition. So when we're at work and something life-related pops up that pulls our attention away, that's not what's throwing us off, because that's natural. That's going to happen. What was throwing us off is when the cognitive transition from one topic to another depleted our energy. So what do I mean by that? Here's a guy at work. He's just got off his last Zoom call, and he suddenly remembered, oh man, I got to check on my parents. So he was in work mode, and now he suddenly had a life-related thought. Now, that's not the challenge. That's going to happen. But where you really want to tune in and be aware is that thought empowering for you, or is that thought depleting for you? If that thought is empowering, it's not going to take a toll. If it's depleting, it is. So think of your energy level like you would a gas tank in a car. The more thoughts that you have that are depleting, the more your gas tank is going to lower faster and faster and faster and faster. So be really cognitive as you have these distractions, whether it be work distractions when you're trying to enjoy your life, or life distractions when you're trying to enjoy, or when you're trying to focus on work. Just be really cognitive about the weight of those distractions? And how do you move them from depleting to empowering? So here's one example. In this situation, if you do remember, hey, I need to check on my parents in the middle of work, put it on your calendar. Do it later. That way it doesn't weigh on you. You know it's going to get done. All good. Or ask yourself, hey, I've got a lot on my plate. Is this really something that I need to do now? Or is this something that I can push to a later time when it's more feasible for me to do? And give yourself the grace to take something off your plate. So this is a great example of how, those thoughts, those interruptions are going to happen between life and work, but be really mindful of how empowering or depleting those thoughts are and do everything you can to move them to a more empowering place so your gas tank doesn't deplete so quickly. Step number 2, create boundaries. So great way to do this when you have life work disruptions, be mindful of how it impacts your energy, like we just talked about. Try to minimize the multitasking, focus on the task at hand. If it is time that you're focusing on life, do that. Focus on life. Enjoy that time, that conversation with your friend. Enjoy that dinner that you're having with your family. Put work away and really let yourself live in the moment, be in the moment. Reserve blocks of time after work when you don't check work email. It's so easy to get in the habit of just, there's just this block of time, I'm just going to grab my phone and see what's going on, but you're going to get pulled in like that. So be really mindful of when you decide to check your work email. If you don't want to get pulled into something, if you want to savor that time that you're in to enjoy your life, don't check your work email. Look for ways to create physical space between your desk and your home. So this is kind of tricky when we're in the pandemic, right? But there's creative ways we can do this. If you're blessed enough to have an office that's completely dedicated to work, where you can close the door, then just close the door when you're done with work and create that physical boundary. A lot of us don't have that luxury because we live in California and the cost of living is really high. So creative way to do that is you maybe put up a screen where you separate your workspace from your living space so you don't see it. Or very, very simply, just close your laptop, close your computer, put it away, put it down. So that way you're eliminating that distraction where work is going to pull you away from life. It's just very simple little things. Okay, final thing we're going to dive into, and then I want to take your questions, is how do we recharge our mind and our body? Now, these are 2 very important areas, so I've separated them because they're both important to pay attention to. So going back to the science, why it's important, psychologists John Kunios and Mark Beeman mapped brain waves to discover when we are at our peak performance. And what they found is that, this probably won't surprise you, but moments of brilliance and creativity come when we are in a calm and a relaxed state, when we're doing anything but work. So this probably won't surprise you if you think back of the last time you had this big intuitive moment, this big aha moment. It was probably not when you were in back-to-back Zoom meetings, but it was probably when you were in the shower, or when you were taking your dog for a walk, or when you were gardening outside. So creating this time and space where you can allow yourself to get to that peak performance is really, really important. So think about building this into your day so you can be brilliant. So how do we find ways to recharge our mind? Well, one thing that you can do is to help with the Zoom fatigue, where it's appropriate, try phone calls instead of video calls. Now, big caveat here, what I see a lot of people doing, and this is really tempting, is when you're on Zoom calls, turning off your camera. Please, please, please don't do that in important meetings, because what that tells the person on the call is, I'm not listening to you, you're not important, and I'm multitasking. So in this world where we're all remote, and we've lost the ability to connect with others that was available to us when we were in person, the closest we can get to that is by putting on our Zoom camera when we're on work calls. So please try to do that when you can. Be present for that other person, try to connect with them, active listening, and continue to build those relationships at work, because those are important. We're all going through this pandemic, and the more we can support each other, the better off we're all going to be. Resist reaching for your phone first thing when you wake up. This is actually, something I've been talking about for a while, and there's a lot of data coming out in the media about this now. This may be something that you're doing that you don't realize you're doing, but if when you wake up in the morning and the first thing that you're doing is grabbing your cell phone, you are setting yourself up to start your life on your day on a deficit. Why? Because you grab your cell phone, you open your email, and it's immediately going to prompt you to think, oh my gosh, I got 20 emails while I was sleeping. I'm way behind. So what do? You rush to go brush your teeth. You rush to go eat your breakfast, grab your coffee, whatever you do in the morning. In the meantime, always thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to get back to so-and-so and so-and-so and so. You've lost the moment. You've lost the opportunity to set up your day in a positive way. So instead of reaching for your cell phone, I implore you to just replace that with taking just a couple of minutes to just think about the kind of day you want to have and what you're grateful for in your life. Set an intention for the week or the day. So this is really powerful. Again, instead of getting pulled into other people's agendas, putting out fires, especially in this COVID time where there's so much stress around us, just take a couple minutes to set an intention for your week or for your day. And so you're in charge of how it unfolds. Be mindful of how much you interact with technology. Look for ways to spend your limited free time in ways that are going to be restorative. This is a big one. And schedule time to reflect and plan for what you need to maximize your energy. Something we don't think about, but the real gift of the pandemic is people aren't looking over our shoulder all the time. So take advantage of that and schedule time to plan and think about what you need, what you want, and how to build that into your week. Okay, so movement. I'm not going to spend too much time here because we've all heard about the importance of movement. But really quickly, when we move, it increases the oxygen flow to our brain, which produces new brain cells, which aids in creating synapses. In addition, movement decreases our stress, it increases our energy, and it calms our mind, and it calms our body. So there's so many reasons why moving is important. And it's really easy to just go zoom, 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 zoom all day. Try not to. If you can, just find creative ways to incorporate movement. I'm going to give you a few ideas. Take a walk while taking a work call when it's appropriate. I mean, certainly this isn't when you're on a high-profile call with a customer or when you're on your one-on-one with your boss, unless you've gotten that express consent. But if there are more casual conversations that you're having at work, just ask that person if they would mind if you just took that call while you were taking a walk outside, and get some good earbuds so that the external noise isn't disruptive. Make time to get outside once a day. Now, I know this sounds absurd, right? Why aren't we getting outside once a day? But it's so easy to wake up, hit our computer, do stuff at home, fall asleep, and then realize that we never stepped outside and had a breath of fresh air or touched a tree or saw a tree or even took the time to appreciate the sunshine. Most of us are living in California. It's a beautiful state. We're paying a lot of sunshine tax. Get outside, enjoy it, recharge your body. There's something so inspirational and just recharging about just breathing in fresh air and being outside in nature. So make sure you do it at least once a day. By the way, you can, if you need to eat lunch, a great way to incorporate, being outside is eat your lunch while you're outside. Go on your rooftop, go outside, whatever the case may be. Even if it's just to go downstairs to grab some water, you need to do that anyway, right? And we need to keep ourselves hydrated. So again, that 10 to 15 minute padding between meetings can really help just encourage you to move your body, get it going, get that blood flowing. Calendar time to work out 3 to 5 times a week. Now, working out can feel really heavy for some people. A lot of people already do this, and if you do, great. If you're one of those people that has trouble incorporating this into your schedule, I would just ask, what do you think about working out? What are some ways that you can work out that you're really going to enjoy? So it doesn't have to be hardcore cardio for 60 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. It can be hiking. It can be walking outside. It can be gardening. It can be house cleaning. It can be just find a way to increase your heart rate in a way that's really going to be restorative and enjoyable for you. Okay, so I've just said a lot. This is so weird not to be able to see your faces, but I want to hear from you. Given everything that you've heard through this talk, if you're willing, please just share one thing that you'll do differently as a result of what you've heard. And Faith or Jamila, if you could just kind of share what you're seeing on your end. Are we getting some answers coming through?
No, not yet. Let's repeat the question to ask one more time to everyone.
Okay. This has been a lot of me talking. Somebody's raised their hand. Maybe they can't chat. That could be the problem.
And we have opened up the chat box, so the chat is available.
Great. Okay. So if you're still out there, if you've hung on this long with me just talking over here, would love to hear from you. What's one thing you'll do differently as a result of what you've heard?
So Nicole has shared that she's going to do workouts, exclamation, I love that enthusiasm, and take small breaks. Very
beautiful. Yay, Nicole.
Maybe we have more coming in. I love this. We have Marissa says she's going to resist reaching for her phone first thing in the morning. It's a great tip.
Yay.
Lopez saying separate my workspace from my living space. Adam Weiss is saying thank you. This was fantastic. I intend to do more physical activity and block out time. Love that. Beautiful. Carla says I'd like the piece of setting an intention each morning to start your day. Yes, intentions are powerful. Mm-hmm. Dawn added, I'm going to add in movement during my day instead of sitting at the table the whole time. Love that. Yay. Take a walk while on a call. Again, Adam, Michelle mentioned calendar things that come to mind for later. So calendar them so that they don't take up the bandwidth and create a distraction from what she's doing. Love that. We have Amy saying, enjoy the sunshine, simply. Mm-hmm. Raina said, she says, I know I'm supposed to do the hard and creative stuff first, but for some reason, that's a huge challenge for me. To get me started in the day, I like to start my day with admin stuff and email to get into the work, and then I let days and weeks go by where I postpone the hard creative stuff, frowny face. So that seems like a great question to tackle first when we do the Q&A. So we'll loop back on that. I can relate. Be more conscious. Tania says, be more conscious of social media phone use, specifically in the morning, and that she'll go outside more and likes the lunch idea of going outside more. Gina says going outside more. A lot of outside. And
yay, outside.
And that's all of them right now.
Thank you all. It's so nice to hear your voices after just staring at myself this whole time. So thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to hear from you guys, after you incorporate this for a week or so. Shoot me a note. Let me know how you feel, if anything's different. Here's my contact information. Again, I'm an executive career and leadership coach. So please, let me know what's changed for you as a result of this call. Also, if you need career coaching, leadership coaching, team workshops, I do this type of speaking for lots of organizations. So I'm here for you. Stay in touch. Website, swimagainst.com.
Love that. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. I was having lots of ahas and even of things that I know to be true, but have gotten away from in this time. So thank you so much for that lovely presentation. I'm going to open it up for Q&A now. So this is your time. This is your moment. If you have a question, feel free to put it either in the chat. No, there's two chat boxes. Looks like there's a chat box and the Q&A box. I'll be checking both. But right now, let's start with that great question that Raina brought up that I really relate to, which I think of as a type of procrastination, doing the lower, the admin stuff, the safe work first.
Easy stuff. Yep, I hear you. I hear you.
But knowing that harder stuff, more creative stuff can sometimes get pushed on the back burner simply because I don't feel prepared or ready to do it. So yeah, what do you want to say about that, Amy, to Raina and me?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, Raina, thank you for sharing that. And you've also highlighted that this tactic in terms of pushing it, delaying it, probably gets you to a really, really stressful place, right? Like it's hanging over your head. You don't want to do it, but by continuing to delay it, it gets to a critical, stressful level. So I would just say, if morning is not your time when you're most alert and awake and at your creative best, try to find the time during the day that is, and see if you can reframe that thing that you're not wanting to do, right? Because you just probably don't want to do it, which explains why you're not doing it. And find a time when you feel at your peak, your mental peak, and then try to find a way to reframe that thing, and so it does become more motivating for you and you don't get stuck in that urgent situation where you have to get it done.
Lovely. I love that. Thank you. We have a question from Amy about it's on the same vein of any tips to focus in general. That's her question.
Oh gosh, that's such a large question. To focus in general. Okay. Now I have so many follow-up questions to that as to what's causing the lack of focus, but from a really high level, eliminate distractions. I know I've talked about this a couple times in the speech, but I mean, we are in a digital age where actually just saw this documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. Yeah, Jamila, you're nodding. Technology is such that they are constantly trying to get our attention. It's also the case with work, right? If they're not Zooming us, then they're emailing us, they're texting us, they're calling us, there's like a inner chat. There's like hundreds of ways for people to reach us. So if you're having trouble focusing, it's not surprising because our world is not set up to enable you to focus. So you have to be really mindful about eliminating distractions. A great way to do so, that's part of it, is just turning off distractions. And then another way to train your mind to focus, meditation can really work wonders.
Love that. I love that. So is that a bit like putting the keys at the door so you don't forget them? Have you ever heard of that trick of people putting important things like in a place where you need them? It's like by cutting out the distractions, you're kind of cueing your brain, like this is the time we're going to focus. Is that how you would kind of describe what you're saying?
I think that you're adding another great element to it, Jamila, is if you know your tendency is not to be able to focus, leave notes or cues around, like the keys in the door, to remind you to pick up a practice to help you focus, whether that be, turn things off, try to meditate, set the intention. It's all about training your mind, and all these things can help.
So helpful. Okay, we have another question here. Michelle Clark sharing. She started a new job 1 week before the pandemic. Great.
Woo! Oh, wow.
But been having some challenges to network and build professional relationships in this remote environment. What tips might you offer for her to connect and network while being remote?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's come up with a few of my clients too. So, yeah, gosh, I just want to say, what was her name again, Jamila?
Michelle Clark.
Michelle, you that was a real disadvantage. So yeah, just acknowledge that, right? I mean, you started right before the pandemic when stress levels went through the roof. Companies were having to change their business models overnight. It was not a conducive place to come in as a new person and learn. So the good thing is now we're 6 months into it. People have started to adjust to the new norms. This is a good time to just set up one-on-ones and start to get to know people. They have more bandwidth to do that now. As business models have adjusted and people have started to, the stress has gotten to become less intense. So that is the most important thing. Normally you would do that in person, but you're going to have to make a concerted effort to get on people's calendars, get one-on-one time with them, introduce yourself, and build those relationships.
I love that. That's so helpful. Thank you, Amy. Gina was asking about vacation time. She said, what about vacation time? Will it even feel like a break if I'm still at home?
Oh, great question. So the fact that she's asking that tells me that no, it probably won't. So if that's truly the way you feel, you're taking vacation time and you're not at home and it doesn't feel like a break, try to think of things you can do. I mean, what's interesting is we used to hop on planes and go visit places, but there's so many cool places in the area where you can drive. So maybe look at renting an Airbnb with your, the people that the limited people you've been seeing during the pandemic, or go camping, or, just find something to break up your routine, because that's where the most magic and recharging is going to happen. And I know it sucks, but got to get creative. And I mean, what's cool is there's a lot of nice places to explore in the area that we normally disregard when the plane is available to us.
I love that. I agree, Amy. I'm finding that if I can get somewhere, even just 20 minutes or for 30 minutes outside of LA once a week, I am good. That is enough for me. So kind of just maybe taking note of what that number is. Is it every 2 weeks? Is it every 3 weeks? But yeah, nature.
Yes.
Beautiful. So we have
That's good input.
She's mentioning during the pandemic, her company switched to a night schedule, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Do you have a recommendation of how to handle separate personal life from work, especially because as being remote, they're not really able to go out during the day, even though they're.
So say that again, Jamila. She's 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. and even when she's not at work, she can't leave?
Yeah, so let me read. I'm just going to read the last little bit. Do you have a recommendation for how to handle separate personal life from work, especially because we are remote and not really able to go out yet during the day? It seems like she can't go out during the day, but has to work from 3 to 11 p.m. in the evening.
Okay, wow. It sounds like the way she's framing it up, she's basically imprisoned in her house, which, oh man, you guys, this is tough times. So first of all, that's, acknowledge and validate. That is not an easy situation you're in. So go easy on yourself. Within the confines that you're operating in, try to identify things that are going to recharge you. And, whether it be just, walking outside, or the thing that I've found is I'm tuning into this app called Fit On. It's a workout app, and I'll take it out to my backyard and do yoga for 30 minutes and I come back a new person. So these are things that I was just going to my gym before. These are things I'd never thought of before. So see if you can uncover some creative things to help you recharge when you're confined to home, and in those difficult working hours. And if it's not working out, if that schedule is too grueling for you, make sure you keep up your networking and see if you can find something that's going to honor your needs a little bit better.
I agree. We have Marissa sharing that, I'll just read it. I don't have anything in my apartment that depends on me for its livelihood, no kids, pets, or partner. Yet I feel like my personal to-do list is never ending. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed. Any tips, tricks on how to frame my approach? A current example on one of the ways I'm looking at it is that I treat myself to a mani-pedi or massage after getting all the cleaning done in my apartment.
Oh, love it. Woo! Oh gosh, I will tell you. So it's interesting because our to-do list sometimes is the product of our own doing. So you, at some point, you may want to introduce additional people that you care for in your life, and believe me, you will make time for them. But what's interesting is there a way, as you look at your current to-do list, that you can add self-care to that to-do list? So all those things that have to get done are not taking you away from taking care of yourself. That's actually number one priority on your to-do list. So oftentimes people treat everything they've got to do for work as, this is my top priority. But if you're not taking care of yourself, these things are going to fall flat. So treat treat taking care of yourself as high as a priority as you would treat that meeting with your boss, and make sure it gets done. Something is going to fall off. And at the end of the day, I'm willing to bet that that thing that falls off, you're going to find is not that important.
I love that. Thank you. We have another question, one more. As a single person living by myself, I have not seen another person for a while. Hard to find motivation.
Yeah. I felt that one right through my heart. Yeah, that is a real challenge of this pandemic. So the finding the motivation piece. There could be a lot of things at play there. I mean, certainly the loneliness factor. You went from socialization, seeing people, interacting, to being by yourself a lot. I mean, that's why we're seeing increased rates of stress and depression. So just coming back to see what you can incorporate within the confines of COVID to reintroduce the things that were important to you before. Some of this is just going to be, it's never going to be as good as it was pre-COVID. And I hate to say that, but that's going to be the case for a lot of people. But finding a way to get through this in a way where you're still getting your basic needs met. And please, reach out for help. Don't feel badly about reaching out for help if you need it. This is a worldwide pandemic, and you're doing great, but we can't do it alone. So please take care of yourself.
I love that. And to that end, I actually have a question that goes right in line with that around kind of being transparent. I know everyone always says, be transparent and, be authentically you. And that's what's going to, help you excel in your career. And, we're seeing not astronomical, but very, very high rates of depression and anxiety, especially amongst younger, like millennials who don't have a family, who are cooped up inside and don't have, just physical contact, things like that. How transparent, or how would you frame it if you wanted to be transparent about needing to take a mental health day, or needing to, if you're having those kind of overwhelming things, what's a way that you think you could frame that as a positive for leadership?
That's a great question. Yes. I mean, I've talked to so many corporate leaders, and the fact is it's okay to not be okay right now. And the really, really, really good leaders are recognizing that this is a heightened time of stress, and they're having those good conversations with their team. Now, this all, how much you reveal about what you need, respect your privacy. So if you don't want to open up that much to somebody in a leadership role, if you don't have that trust with them, don't feel obligated to pull back the curtain and let them know what's happening. It's all about your comfort level, but do recognize your needs. And if you need to take that mental health day, give them time, give them advance notice. Follow the procedures so that it doesn't create disruptions that you didn't mean to create. And then take that day and frame it up in a way that you feel most comfortable with. It's completely understandable just to say, I'm going to take Friday off as a personal day, and leave it at that. You don't have to go into any more detail if you don't feel comfortable.
I love that. Thank you for that empowerment. So let me see, are there any other questions? Looks like Faith is trying to ask a question, but it's kind of coming up strange on my end. It says you're going to ask a question in this live. So maybe try to use the chat feature, Faith, with an E, very cool name. But if anyone else has questions, we have time for maybe like one more question, maybe two. So, let's see. It's moving. Okay. Someone's helping me answer all of these. I'm going to give a couple more, about 20 more seconds. If you think of a question that you want to ask while you have Amy here. I mean, this woman has coached so many people. Use this opportunity to get your question answered if you have one.
Yeah, and Jamila, while we're waiting, I'll just say, guys, we're so isolated and we don't see what's going on with everybody else. But I'll tell you, my business has been busier than ever. Everybody's feeling this. Everybody's experiencing the stress of the pandemic and trying to adjust. I've worked with so many corporate leaders during this who are trying to figure out how do I lead differently, given that my team's going through all these difficulties. How do I take care of myself when my kids are knocking on my door while I'm on a phone call? Everybody's going through this together. So don't feel like it's just you. You're not alone. This is, we'll get through this. We'll get through this.
I love that. It's actually perfect, again, going into the last question that we have asked by Tanya. She's asking, do you have any tips for managing small children at home? So we're on that door knock.
I'm right there with you, Tanya. I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. The biggest thing is if you can, try to find somebody to help you. This idea that we can do both simultaneously, take care of young children and work, is absurd. It's just not possible. I actually was reading an article that unfortunately a lot of women are in leadership roles are taking a step back because of the pandemic, because of this very issue. So prioritize your needs. This is a real challenge because we've got income needs as well as family needs, and they're all coming crashing down. But if you can find a way to get help for your young children, so that does allow you to work and you're not pulled in so many directions, please do that if that's available to you. If not, just know that you're doing the best you can. And this is a really hard situation. And the best you can do is make sure that your self-narrative is positive. Don't blame yourself for not being a superstar at work and a superstar mom. It's impossible to do both.
That's brilliant. Well, that is all the time we have for questions right now today. I want to thank you so much, Amy, for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. It's incredible. Definitely impacted me and gave me lots of things to think about. So thank you. And I also want to thank all of you out there who took the time to carve out a little space for yourself to do some reflection and have community and connect in this way. So thank you for joining us. I want to also remind you to stay connected with USC through the USC Alumni Association and the Trojan Women Network, as we are, like other great communities and programs, are all on the pipe coming down, and we want you to be able to access them and join us again. So for more information on that, visit alumni.usc.edu. And then on behalf of the USC Alumni Association, I wish everyone have a wonderful, happy evening. Good to see you and hope to see you soon. Thank you so much, and fight on.
Thank you. Fight on.